Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today, we'll talk about a shocking case. It's about how a plumbing problem helped solve a series of violent crimes. Many crimes remain unsolved for different reasons. Experts say this happens when all possibilities are not properly investigated. Sadly, this leaves families heartbroken, never knowing what happened to their loved ones. But sometimes, crimes are solved by pure luck. This story begins with a clogged sewer line that led to uncovering terrible crimes against schoolgirls. The case started with a teenage girl named Rory Hash. When a plumber was called to fix the clogged sewer, it revealed some horrifying acts. This case caused a lot of attention, and the person responsible was also linked to another terrible crime from 10 years ago. People thought this person was a dangerous predator who hunted young women. However, only 2 crimes were proven, even though there was plenty of evidence. On September 11th, 2017, in Oshawa, Ontario, Canada, a fisherman made a horrifying discovery in the harbour. He found a badly damaged and decomposed human torso floating in the water. The man quickly called the police, and the remains were taken for forensic examination. Experts had a hard time identifying the body. It had no arms, legs, or head, and was almost completely destroyed. They could only tell that the torso belonged to a young woman between 18 and 25 years old. Fingerprints, dental records, and other features couldn't help because of the body's condition. A small piece of a tattoo was visible on her neck, but it was too damaged to recognize. The only hope was DNA testing, but no matches were found in the database. The police began checking reports of missing young women. It wasn't until November, 2 months later, that they identified the body as 18-year-old Rory Hash, a high school student who had gone missing in August, about a month before the torso was found. Rory was also pregnant when she disappeared. Divers searched the harbour and nearby Lake Ontario for weeks, but couldn't find any other body parts. Experts couldn't determine how or when she died, but they discovered that she had suffered many serious injuries while she was still alive. There were sad suspicions that Rory had been tortured for a long time before her tragic death. The thought of her suffering is deeply sorrowful. The case took a shocking turn 4 months later, in December, when a family moved into a house at 19 Macmillan Drive in Oshawa, Ontario. The house was split into 2 units. The family immediately noticed a strange and terrible smell. Their downstairs neighbor, a 45-year-old man named Adam Strong, told them it was just a small plumbing problem he would fix soon. Adam acted polite and friendly but seemed odd. When David Wood's wife brought him homemade cookies to welcome him, Adam didn't let her into his apartment. Instead, he stepped into the hallway, quickly closing the door behind him. She noticed the place was messy, and the smell inside was awful. Adam thanked her, took the cookies, and quickly ended the conversation. Later, when they met outside, Adam apologized for not inviting her in, saying his apartment was in bad shape. Because he was about to renovate, he seemed polite but nervous. Over the next few days, the Wood family tried to ignore the smell, but it got worse. On December 29th, they finally called a plumber to fix what they thought was a simple sewer problem. When the plumbers arrived, they noticed the horrible smell right away. As they worked, they realized the blockage wasn't in the Wood family's pipes, but in the downstairs unit. Reluctantly, Adam let them into his apartment. The smell in Adam's apartment was unbearable. As the plumbers started working, they found something horrifying: human body parts in the pipes. To make things worse, a head was later discovered in Adam's refrigerator. Plumber Sean Fenn later admitted that, in all his years of work, he had never dealt with anything so disgusting. But what he found next was even worse. As the workers continued clearing the pipes, Adam Strong, the apartment owner, became more nervous. He kept hovering around, asking what they were doing and how long it would take. Adam claimed he was just curious, because he had never seen a plumbing job before. The plumbers ignored him and kept working. Then, they pulled out over 10 kilograms of flesh, tangled hair, and bone fragments from the pipes. Among the remains, Sean saw disfigured, decomposed human fingers. Shocked, he realized what they had found. Adam acted surprised and said it was the most disgusting thing he'd ever seen. He even asked the plumbers how something like that could end up in the pipes. Instead of answering, Sean immediately called the police, reported the discovery, and stayed to make sure Adam didn't try to destroy any evidence. When the police arrived, they confirmed that the remains were human. They questioned Adam, expecting excuses or lies. Instead, Adam bowed his head and calmly admitted that a woman's remains were stuck in the pipes. He even told them that the rest of the body parts were in his freezer. Inside the freezer, police found a severed head in a plastic bag along with other body parts that couldn't fit down the toilet. The entire apartment was filthy and filled with trash. The kitchen had piles of dirty dishes, rotting food, and empty pizza boxes scattered on the floor. Amid the mess, the police found disturbing items, including magazines about violent adult content, whips, handcuffs, and devices used for binding and hanging. Adam Strong was arrested and taken to the police station for questioning. The police were surprised because Adam had never been in trouble before and wasn't on their radar. He had lived at 19 Macmillan Drive in Oshawa for over 10 years, and none of his previous neighbors had ever complained about him. Adam was born in 1972 in Cornwall, Ontario, but not much is known about his early life or family. He was single, had no children, and worked as a gas station operator and part-time security guard on film sets. People who knew him said he was strange and thought he was smarter than everyone else. He liked to argue and prove he was right, but wasn't seen as aggressive. The police reviewed his social media and found he had a strong interest in BDSM practices, which he openly shared through photos and videos. He didn't have a steady partner, but some of his exes claimed he was a sadist who put them through painful experiences, which ended the relationships. Adam also spent a lot of time watching adult films and writing reviews about them. Even though he acted calm and composed, his house at 19 Macmillan Drive was a nightmare. The police quickly secured it as a crime scene, knowing there would be more horrifying discoveries. They suspected that the remains in the pipes, along with the head and limbs found in the freezer, belonged to Rory Hash. This was later confirmed by DNA testing and the tattoo on her neck. Inside the house, investigators found blood-stained clothes and shoes belonging to Rory, hidden among piles of trash. Her blood was everywhere on the bed, walls, furniture, and even the ceiling. The kitchen was the most disturbing. It had a dissection table that Adam likely used to cut up her body. Blood, hair, skin, and bone fragments were scattered all over the house, making the scene unbearable for those who examined it. The bathroom was filthy, with dirt, blood, and signs of horrific acts. The toilet had been removed and left in a corner, suggesting Adam had tried to flush the body parts down the sewer but failed. The police also found many sharp weapons in the house, some still covered in Rory's blood. These were likely the tools Adam used to dismember her body. Traces of Adam Strong's DNA were found on the body parts retrieved from his freezer. But who was Rory Hash, the victim? Let's take a closer look at her life, how she ended up in Adam's home, and what happened to her. Rory Hash was born on July 9, 1999 in Oshawa. She was the only child of Shanann Dion, a single mother. Rory's father left before she was born and was never part of her life. Rory grew up in a unique family. Her grandfather was the founder of a motorcycle club called Satan's Choice and had strong connections to the criminal underworld. Her uncle was a member of the Hells Angels and lived a wild life, often getting into legal trouble. Despite this, Rory's childhood was peaceful and filled with love. Her mother and grandmother worked hard to provide her with a good life. Rory was a bright and talented child. She was a good student and an excellent dancer, even winning awards at competitions. At 13, she was named Best Cadet of the Year in her local army unit. However, her life took a dark turn at 15. A friend introduced her to drugs, and she became addicted. She started spending time with the wrong crowd, stopped caring about school, and eventually dropped out. Her family tried hard to help her. They sent her to different clinics for treatment, but each time she relapsed and fell back into addiction. By 17, Rory had run away from home and was engaging in risky activities to support her drug habit. Desperate to save her, her mother turned to a specialized service for teens struggling with addiction. Through mandatory treatment, Rory slowly began to rebuild her life. Rory made a fresh start. She found a job as a salesperson, started studying remotely to finish high school, and dreamed of going to college. In addition, she entered a serious relationship with a young man named Anthony. By the spring of 2017, they had decided to move in together. In June 2017, Rory told her mother that she was pregnant and planned to keep the baby. At nearly 18, she was old enough to make her own decisions, so her mother supported her choice. However, Shannon didn't know that Rory had started using drugs again. In Mydogst, Rory met with local constable Christopher Crane at a shopping center. Crane had been watching over her for the past 18 months, trying to make sure she stayed away from bad influences. That day, Rory admitted to him that she had relapsed and lost her job a month earlier. She was now turning to intimate exchanges for money or drugs. Crane was very worried for her. He promised to help and told her to wait while he stepped away to call for help and arrange a hospital stay for her. But when he came back, Rory was gone. He couldn't find her anywhere. The next day, Rory's mother and uncle found her incoherent from drugs and took her to the hospital. For some reason, they left her alone in the emergency room while they stepped out for about an hour. When they returned, she had disappeared. Surveillance footage showed Rory getting up, walking out of the hospital, and leaving. Her family filed a missing persons report the next day. Despite extensive searches and social media spreading the news, no one could find her. While it's unclear how Rory ended up at Adam Strong's house, it's likely that her need for drugs led her there to offer intimate services to him in exchange for money or a fix. After Adam Strong was arrested, he immediately told the police where to find the remaining body parts. Investigators thought he would start confessing, but when he was at the station, he became quiet and refused to answer any questions. He stayed calm and didn't admit to anything. Since there was no direct evidence linking him to Rory's death, he was only charged with desecrating a body. Despite his lawyer's efforts, Adam was denied bail and stayed in jail while waiting for his trial. The investigators weren't sure how to get him to talk, so they tried to provoke him to get an emotional response. But Adam wasn't easily manipulated. He carefully avoided answering questions about how Rory ended up in his house and what he had done to her. However, he did talk a lot about his love for knives and his big collection of bladed weapons. Searches continued in Adam's house, and in one room, police found a dirty hunting knife hidden in a closet. The knife had dried skin fragments that looked like human tissue. DNA tests showed that the skin didn't belong to Rory, but to another person. Identifying who it was took months, but by July 2017, the DNA was linked to a young woman named Candace Fitzpatrick. She had gone missing almost 10 years earlier. Candace Fitzpatrick and Rory Hash had a lot in common. Both struggled with drug addiction, legal troubles, and grew up in difficult family situations. Candace often ran away from home and would disappear for months at a time, living with acquaintances and exchanging her body for food and drugs. She was born in 1989 and was 18 years old when she went missing. Her family didn't notice she was missing right away and only reported it nearly 2 years later, by which time it was too late to find any clues. Candace's lifestyle and the people she associated with made it hard for anyone to know where she had gone. For 10 years, her parents thought she had just run away, but they always hoped she would come back. In 2018, Candace Fitzpatrick's family received heartbreaking news that destroyed any hope of seeing her alive again. Both victims, Candace and Rory, were the same age and looked so much alike they could have been sisters. This made investigators believe they were dealing with a serial predator. While Rory's remains were found, no other physical evidence of additional victims had surfaced. Adam Strong's unbelievable bargain. When questioned about Candace, Adam Strong shockingly tried to bargain with the police. Aware of his dire situation, he offered to cooperate, but only if his demands were met. He asked for a private cell, a large TV, internet access, and specific meals. While the authorities were outraged by his boldness, they reluctantly agreed to his terms in hopes of obtaining critical information. Adam's disturbing past. Adam began by sharing details about his troubled childhood. He claimed he was abused by his stepfather, starting at age 5. By 7, he began torturing animals, admitting he found pleasure in these cruel acts. He also spoke openly about his struggles to find a partner who shared his disturbing interests. When talking about Rory, Adam described in horrifying detail how he dismembered her body, even expressing regret that his plumbing system had failed him. However, he denied being involved in her death, claiming she overdosed, and that he simply disposed of her remains. Revelations about Candace. When questioned about Candace Fitzpatrick, Adam appeared caught off guard since her disappearance had been a decade earlier. Upon learning that her DNA had been found on an old knife, he became quiet and admitted to knowing her. However, he denied causing her death, despite the evidence pointing otherwise. A chilling confession. The investigators tried to provoke Adam by revealing that Rory was pregnant at the time of her death. Adam denied this, insisting he would have known. The police pressed further, claiming the pregnancy was in its early stages and might not have been visible. Adam became agitated and began defending his claim, revealing that he had personally examined her remains, including her reproductive organs. Caught up in his argument, Adam began describing the experience in grotesque detail. At one point, he mentioned feeling a pulsation while handling her body, suggesting Rory might still have been alive during the dismemberment. This revelation sent a chilling shock through the investigators. The final moments of Adam Strong's case. After admitting disturbing details about Rory's death, Adam Strong later tried to deny everything. However, his confession was caught on camera and used as evidence in court. He never revealed what happened to Candace Fitzpatrick's body, and her full remains were never found. Detectives also failed to uncover any information about other potential victims. During one of his last interrogations, Adam emotionlessly stated, "I don't know if it matters, but I would like my condolences passed on to the girl's parents." Adam's lawyers argued that he was mentally ill and unfit to stand trial, claiming he needed psychiatric care instead of prison. However, a thorough evaluation determined that while Adam had certain disorders, he was fully aware of his actions and could be held accountable for them. The trial began in September 2020, 3 years after Rory Hash's death and 12 years after Candace Fitzpatrick disappeared. Adam was charged with 2 counts of murder and the desecration of Rory's remains. Despite his refusal to admit guilt, The evidence found in his home and his recorded confessions left no room for doubt. 4 of Adam's former partners testified against him, describing his cruel and violent behavior. Prosecutors argued that Adam lured both women to his home by offering money for intimate services. Once there, he immobilized his victims, subjected them to torment, and eventually killed them, likely out of fear they would report him to the police. In one instance, phone records placed Adam near the city harbour, where he disposed of Rory's torso, hoping the current would carry it away. In April 2021, Adam Strong was found guilty of the murders of Candace Fitzpatrick and Rory Hash, as well as the desecration of Rory's remains. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. The verdict didn't seem to faze Adam, who even remarked that his prison cell was more comfortable than his previous home. 6 months after his sentencing, Adam unexpectedly confessed to the location of Candace's remains. Following his directions, police conducted an extensive search and eventually found human bones. DNA testing confirmed they belonged to Candace Fitzpatrick. Investigators suspect there may be more victims. One clue was a chain with 3 rings found in Adam's possession when he was first arrested. He later requested its return, saying the rings were important to him. Relatives of Rory and Candace identified 2 of the rings as belonging to their daughters. But the 3rd ring remains unclaimed, hinting at a potential 3rd victim. Don't forget to subscribe. More shocking stories are coming your way. Thanks for watching.